The silence in room 47 Part II, the echo of marble floors, the federal courthouse in Montgomery, Alabama, was built in 1926, with towering columns and marble floors that echoed every footstep like a gavel striking judgment into stone. In Courtroom 47, Judge Horace Pennington presided like a relic of the past. Known for his brilliant legal mind and bitter tongue, Pennington was a man whose face belonged in black and white photographs, and so did many of his beliefs. It was the kind of place where unspoken rules were louder than the written ones, where history lingered like a ghost behind every bench. That was the room where 34-year-old attorney Desiree Holt was scheduled to argue her first major civil rights case. She wasn't what most people expected when they heard Harvard Law. She was black, from the south side of Chicago, with braids that reached her shoulders and a voice like fire wrapped in velvet. The case? Anderson v. Eastbrook County, a brutal police misconduct case, where a 17-year-old black teenager was beaten unconscious during a routine traffic stop. Desiree wasn't just representing the victim, she was carrying the weight of every kid who ever flinched when they saw blue lights in the rearview mirror. Part I. Your kind shouldn't be here. From the moment she walked into room 47, she could feel Judge Pennington's eyes digging into her like a chisel. When she greeted him with a polite "Good morning, Your Honor," he didn't respond. Instead, he addressed her co-counsel, a white junior associate, and said, "Mr. Bennett, I assume you'll be handling today's arguments." "No, sir," Bennett replied, glancing nervously at Desiree. "Miss Holt is lead counsel." Pennington leaned forward, his voice dipped in slow, thick sarcasm. "Is that so? Well, I hope she's not too busy working on her activism speeches to remember how the Constitution works." Laughter stirred among a few of the defense team's older members. Desiree didn't flinch. She'd heard worse. What got her was the silence from the other attorneys in the room, from her own co-counsel, from the stenographer who hesitated for a second before typing the insult into the record. But she'd come prepared. She laid out her arguments with surgical precision, citing federal precedents, introducing body cam footage, witness testimony, medical records. The courtroom listened, and Pennington watched his smirk slowly fading with each word she delivered. Part I storm and stillness. As the trial progressed over the week, Pennington tried every trick in the judicial playbook. He overruled her objections without explanation. He cut her off mid-sentence. Once, during a recess, he called her into his chambers under the guise of discussing courtroom conduct. When she arrived, he didn't even look up from his papers. "You know, Miss Holt," he said, "some people are better suited to community organizing than federal court." "Just a thought," she smiled thinly. "With all due respect, Your Honor, some people mistake tradition for justice." Just a thought. The moment lingered like a lit match between them. Then she turned and walked out, never looking back. Part IV verdict day. By the end of the trial, the evidence was overwhelming. The officer had lied under oath. A nurse admitted she was pressured to alter medical reports. Desiree's closing argument was not fiery or emotional. It was steady, devastating, and unshakable. The jury deliberated for 5 hours. When they returned, the forewoman, a retired teacher, didn't look at anyone as she read "We find in favor of the plaintiff." Gasps. A few cries. Desiree blinked, almost too stunned to react. Judge Pennington stared at the verdict slip. His lips parted as if to speak, but nothing came out. He cleared his throat. Tried again. Still, nothing. Finally, he mumbled, "Court is adjourned," but even as the gavel dropped, he sat there, silent, his jaw clenched, his hands trembling slightly. Desire approached the bench slowly. Their eyes met. You stutter when truth hits too hard, don't you?" she whispered. He didn't respond. She turned and walked out of courtroom 47, each step ringing louder than any gavel ever could. Part V. After the echo a month later, a formal complaint was filed against Judge Pennington for repeated patterns of bias and inappropriate conduct. By year's end, he was placed under investigation. Desiree never commented on it publicly. She didn't need to. Instead, she went back to Chicago, opened her own civil rights firm, and mentored young Black lawyers who didn't look like tradition, but looked like the future. And every time someone asked her how she stayed calm in the face of open racism, she'd smile and say, "Sometimes justice isn't loud. Sometimes it's just about who keeps speaking. When the system tries to silence you."